All right, everyone. So, in this one, we're actually going to learn how to add a class to something. So, you guys know how to add classes, right? So, if I have an H1, I'm just going to turn this off temporarily, and I'm going to add, this is an H1. All right, let's preview this. Oops. You guys know what a CSS class is. A CSS class allows you to add a customized, element. So for instance, I already have one called red text here. I could come in here and I could add class equals red text. Okay. The reason why you might want to do this is so that you can actually have two different elements that don't necessarily have the same styling, right? So if I had another H1 here, this is an H1. This one will have the default visual styling, and this will have the styling of whatever the red text class is, which in this case is basically just changing the color. And so if I preview this, boom, okay. So that's cool and everything, but what's nice about this P5 is we can actually add a CSS class to an element that we've created. So not just are we affecting the HTML, we can also apply CSS to it too. So before I do anything, let's just kind of like look at this. So I have a couple of, I'm making a couple of variables here called my paragraph 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I turning off the canvas for now. And then basically what I'm doing is I'm setting each of these variables to equal a P5 HTML element. And that element happens in this case to be a paragraph tag, okay, with some text in it. All right, so let's see what that looks like before I do anything. Okay, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see that I have, 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs there or p tags. Now, what you can actually do is, so we talked about in the last example using, say, for instance, the HTML function that would, where's the HTML function? The HTML function that would change the content of the HTML element. You can actually also, there's another one called class or add class, I should say. And what it will do is add a class to an existing HTML element that currently doesn't have one. So none of these actually, if you view this, none of these have a CSS class applied. But what I could do is I could say, okay, well, why don't we take my paragraph dot two, and we're going to use the add class method or function that's built into it. And then in this case, the argument or the value you put here is the name of a CSS class. So in this case, at the moment, the CSS class has to already exist, okay? There are ways of writing CSS using code, but we're not quite there yet. That's a little bit more advanced. But what I could do is I could say, okay, I'm going to add in red text. So what this is going to do is select the second object and then add this to the HTML. The result is you can see how it added this in, and then that's changing my content, right? And I could do with, any of these kind of things. So maybe I want to add in violet text instead. So I'm saying, okay, my paragraph 4.add class is violet text. By the way, this is case sensitive, so just make sure that, if it's uppercase, lowercase, it's lowercase, it's lowercase, all that fun stuff. Let's go back. And then boom. Okay. So, we're now taking this like another step where it's like, all right, now we can, really affect things, right? So you can add a CSS class. You could actually also add a CSS ID or to something. Okay, you guys know what an ID is. So once again, I'm just going to turn this off temporarily. if I were to come in here and I have like a div, for instance, I could come in here and I can add an ID. ID equals, container or something like that, right? So you guys are hopefully somewhat familiar with this. And if I were to, I could preview this. This is a div. And then I could come in here. I forgot what I called it. Container. I could come in here and write a CSS ID selector like this. Give it some sort of, values. And if I go back, this should now be yellow with red text. And if you look at it, you can see, this is how it works. We can do this also with CSS. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take, I'm going to turn this back on. And what I'm going to do is let's select paragraph 3, and we're going to use the function or the method of the object called ID, which allows you to add an ID to something. And I already have an ID called paragraph, so let's put that in there. Paragraph. All right, let's go back and refresh. Now, what happened here is you can see that this is getting the ID of paragraph, right? And that's giving it this color. Let me go back to styles. You can see that's giving it the pink color and the underline. So you can use JavaScript to add or, to add an ID or a class. You can even use it to add the style type or style attribute. Now, you might remember the style attribute was something like this, where you could literally add in CSS on the fly. Color equals red. This is called an inline style. I don't usually recommend it, but you could do, where is it? Up here. I don't really recommend it, but you could do it. So we could do the same thing here. I'm going to take the my P1 or my paragraph one, and its style is the function. It takes 2 arguments. The first argument is the CSS property you want to apply to it, and the value is the next argument is the value you want it to have. So if I were to say, okay, I want to take this, I don't have a CSS class or ID for this, but I want to take the first paragraph, and why don't we make the background yellow? Well, the CSS property for that would be background color, and the value that I want to make it is yellow. I'm going to hit save, and let's go back, and you can see background color yellow. Okay, and you can do this to anything. So if I were to make another paragraph, let my paragraph my paragraph 5 equals create paragraph, some text. Okay, let's save this, go back, should make another paragraph, boom. I want to take that and add some sort of CSS property to it, whatever CSS property you want. Anything we've talked about. Let's add, I don't know, like a border to it, right? So my paragraph 5.style border is the property, and the value is going to be 1 pixel solid red. Okay. Save. And then there you go. Okay. So you can see how this could be really interesting. In fact, I'm just going to turn this off for now. What if we combine this with an action, like clicking your mouse or clicking on your keyboard? So once again, it's like, all right, what if I'm going to set it up that if you function, key pressed, that's you know, you're waiting for the user to click their mouse or click their keyboard or something, that's when I'm going to make my paragraph a different, you know, I'm going to add the class. So I say, okay, when someone presses their key, my paragraph one dot add class, and I'm going to add the class of, I don't know, green text. All right, so what should happen is it's going to make it first, but it's not going to style it until I press on my keyboard. So I go back, nothing happens, and then when I press on my keyboard, boom, that's when it's going to add it. So you can see it once again, it's like how this could be interesting. You could apply CSS to things to modify while it's still running. I could set up something where, you know, depending on how many times I've clicked my mouse, maybe it's going to change the class, you know what I mean? So there's actually another function called class. So is it class? I think it's just class. Yeah, class. Lowercase c. So this is going to add it, but what's nice about this is that it'll modify it if you already have one, because you don't want to add the class twice. But what I'm going to do, let's make a little counter. Let count equals 0. Count equals count plus 1. If count is less than 5, do this, else, I don't know, my paragraph dot class equals red text. Okay. All right, so I know a lot of stuff just happened there. What just happened? Sorry, let me make sure I'm doing this correct. So that's close, good, and then that matches. Oh, forgot to put it. There you go. There you go. Okay. I have a counter, and then it's going to add one every time I click my keyboard. If it becomes more than 5, it's going to run this, else it's going to run this. So it should be green text until I've clicked more than 5 times, and it should be red text. I have not tested this out, so hopefully this works. Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Uh-oh. If count is less than 5, else. Oh, because I didn't do that. There you go. That's why it did not work. Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom. Okay. So you can see how that once again, this could be kind of interesting. You could write something where it's like you click your mouse 10 times and then it's going to change your text in some way, or do something else. I could add a border to something. I could change the width of the page, like change the width of your container, right? Like, I don't know, like think of it like this, right? I have a container. Uh, and I'm going to come in here, let container. So I'm going to make a variable, and I'm going to set up a CSS for this. Let's say I'm going to make a div. I'm going to say the div is going to be defaultly my div is going to be width of, I don't know, 600 with a background color of yellow. So this is my variable to hold it, and then I'm gonna make container equals create element. I'm gonna make that div, and I'll just put some text in it. This is some text. Let's go back. There it is. Okay. Now it's getting the width. If I click on it, you can see it's coming from the CSS, this width here. What if I want to set it that if I click my mouse, it's actually going to make it bigger? Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of this for now. If you click on your key, I could say, okay, so we called the variable container dot add class. I'm going to make a new class here called wider. And let's set the width to like, I don't know, 1,000. Okay. And when someone clicks their mouse, we're going to add in that class. So if I click, boom. Okay. And that's what we're, where you're on a website and you click something and stuff's like running around. That's what's happening. You're adding and subtracting classes or IDs, and that's going to affect the way things look in your page. And so I could have made it so it's taller or whatever. But these are just ways of kind of like making some interesting stuff here. Okay.